Hey everyone, and welcome to season 2 of Writing Our Way Out, the podcast. My name is Dave Coogan. I'm an English professor at VCU, and this show is based on the book Writing Our Way Out, Memoirs from Jail, the creative culmination of a writing class that I started at the Richmond City Jail and that grew into a journey of reentry with 10 men. In the book and on this show, we explore all of the conditions, traps, and turning points on the path to prison in America and the way to be free. And two of the men from that class who wrote the book with me are on the show today. Dean Anthony Turner, aka Dean Boogie, the man who brought some Harlem style down to Richmond. We last heard from him in episode 3, Tough Love. What's good, Dean Boogie?
Hello, everyone. How's everybody? And we don't want to give all the government out, Dave.
No, no, we don't.
I'm just playing.
I
But
know.
how's everybody doing? Glad I can be a part of this, and hope everybody's having a good evening.
Yeah, man, we're glad you're here. Thanks for being here. And we also have with us Kelvin Belton, aka Coach KB. He knows his way around the basketball court, and we last heard from him in episode 9, How to Play the Game. How you feeling, KB?
I'm doing fine, Dave. I'm feeling good. First off, I'm kind of uncomfortable because I call myself a gentleman, and you just called two guys before the lady who's much smarter than all us and everything. But I'm accepted. Right, I'm fine. I'm here. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Thanks for calling me out on that. But I always like to save the best for last because we have a special guest with us returning to the show, Chelsea Higgs Wise. Chelsea is a mom, a clinical social worker, an inclusion educator, an experienced facilitator, an activist, and the host of Race Capital, a weekly radio show on WIRIR here in Richmond. And she is the co-founder and the executive director of Marijuana Justice, a nonprofit that works to repeal the prohibition of cannabis that affects Black and Brown communities. Okay, and she was on our last show, episode 10, The Prison of White Supremacy. Chelsea, it's good to have you back.
Good to be here. Thanks so much for having me, y'all.
Of
That was
course.
very slick to call me the best, save it for last. I'll accept it.
Hey, well, look, I just play with the setup Kelvin gives me, right? You know, I'm running the ball. He's passing to me. So, all right. So this is Writing Our Way Out, the podcast, season 2, episode 1, Marijuana and the Man. For too long, we have been criminalizing marijuana in America. And while we hear a lot about the arrests for crack, heroin, and other hard drugs, in her book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness, the civil rights lawyer and activist Michelle Alexander writes that arrests for marijuana possession, a drug less harmful than tobacco or alcohol, accounted for nearly 80% of the growth of drug arrests in the 1990s. It is true. People of all races use and sell illegal drugs at remarkably the same rates, and that the majority of illegal drug users and dealers nationwide are white. There are just more white people. But 3/4 of all people in prison for drug offenses have been Black or Latinx. This is according to Alexander. She concludes from this that the racial bias inherent in the drug war is a major reason that 1 in every 14 Black men was behind bars in 2006 compared with 1 in 106 white men. In a parallel universe of the 1990s, though, 5 Western states legalized medical marijuana. In the 2000s, 4 more states joined them. And in the 2010s, 16 states had legalized both medical and recreational marijuana, and they decriminalized it. None of these were Virginia. While Dean and Kelvin were being incarcerated for using and selling marijuana in Virginia, people in other states were using and selling and facing no penalty. In fact, a major cannabis industry emerged 80 to 90% of these large corporations are run by white people. Now, Virginia is poised to legalize and decriminalize. Will they do it right? To answer that, let's take a look back at what happened to Dean and Kelvin because of their involvement with marijuana, and let's see if we can figure out the circumstances, how that might change. Okay, that's my setup. That's my pitch. Kelvin, Dean, I have one question for you, and you can answer one by one, or you can piggyback on each other. And Chelsea, as they answer, feel free to jump in whenever you like to connect what you're hearing in their stories with what's happening now in the legislative process. Okay, Dean, Kelvin, I know that the last times you were both arrested, incarcerated, it was for possession of marijuana with intent to distribute. And I know that because you told me, but also because I was there in court with you. um, but for our listeners who don't know the story, can you walk us through what led to those charges? What was going on in your lives at the time? How did the arrests get made? What sentences did you get? Why did you get those sentences? And how did you see the whole experience in the context of your previous drug-related charges? Dean, do you want to start?
Okay. What led to me getting incarcerated for marijuana was a little bit of, I could say, a few circumstances. Losing my job, rent due, child support, all these types of things that kind of put my back against the wall. Even with job and things of that nature, my job cut back on my hours tremendously, still trying to, figure things out and get it right. Put my hand in a cookie jar and got caught. Caught a case in Henrico County, Virginia. Thinking it wasn't too bad of a case or a situation, and I was sentenced to 10 years with 8 years suspended for marijuana. And that was the plea deal. At first, they were trying to give me 5 years. I said, 5 years for some marijuana? When you have people out here robbing, killing, raping, murder, like I said, murdering, I have none of those things on my record. So for them to even consider me doing 5 years was like insane.
Yeah.
How Mike Tyson said, ludicrous.
Hey, go ahead.
But I guess I put myself in that situation. I manned up. I did my time. I came home. I'm just trying to start over and do it better and do it different. And I'm striving. So that's all I can say as far as that.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback on Dean, because I come to the realization before listening to what Dave said and his timeline. Well, I spoke with Dave on this, right? And I feel real strongly about the fact that, because first, I didn't know that it was so many years back that all these states had legalized marijuana recreationally. First, my first thought was medical. But I was saying, Dean, that while they were setting you up, because the way you was incarcerated was not regular. You say that you was selling marijuana. I had smoked the marijuana at the time. I got some marijuana from you. You weren't a drug dealer. You was a guy, had a little bit of weed, was selling weed. I'm sorry, right? If somebody think I'm trying to cover it up for you, but I'm telling you the truth. The same way in my case. Well, if Kelvin Belton could go sell weed, I'm not gonna be selling out of 17 grams. So you doing that little bit of stuff for to get by, that's exactly what you were doing. But the way that you were incarcerated was not a regular thing. You weren't there selling weed, all that stuff. You had just started back selling weed, celebrating your birthday, and somebody come to your door. It wasn't right. Long story short. But to spend that time in those police hours to come to set you up while they were legalizing marijuana here right at the time, that is my issue.
Yeah.
Yep. Me too.
They have a whole setup right over Southside that I'm sure was that Philip Morris was selling the building to E Green or whatever their name is, to selling them the building so they could produce a product while they were locking you up. That's my problem with the whole thing. Like, that's not the way that's supposed to work, right? If they're working on legalizing it here, why are you out here spending our tax money, time, and effort to go and set somebody up that's not even relevant in the drug selling?
And not to cut you off, KB, it's ironic that as soon as I'm released, they decriminalize it, and now they are one step from legalizing it because it has the potential to garner $300 million for the state.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I know.
It is crazy. I can't believe that. You took me away from my family and my loved ones for 2 years for some marijuana that now you're looking to profit off of. Big time.
Dean, how do you mind me asking how much you had on you when you got your charge?
I think it was like 3.5 ounces or 2.5 ounces.
Yeah, that is
not even a QP.
That's ridiculous. And this is where the real egregiousness even comes in as we are legalizing or talking about legalizing marijuana here in the Commonwealth, is that particular charge as of right now would not be expunged. And their legalization, what they're proposing is that you could have up to 5 pounds and it only be a ticket. So just a couple years ago, a couple ounces or something, you're serving real jail time. Your entire life is flipped. You took a plea bargain down to from 10 years, which is just wild that was the actual the sentencing. And in 2021, they're about to allow people to have 4 plants in their home to home grow. You can have up to 5 pounds on your person, and you can have up to 1 ounce with absolutely no penalty. Now, this is all going to come right now when and if they legalize it. But I'll tell y'all that the commercial market isn't going to open for a couple of years. What they're talking about 2024. And right now, the way the legislation is proposed, up until 2024, we would continue to criminalize and arrest people for it to be legal. And that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But right now, you can go to your doctor and get a card to go buy medical marijuana right now.
Yeah, right on the south side, Greenleaf.
May I say that this same Commonwealth for 17 grams gave me 10 years and suspended the same amount of time they did from Dean. Well, mine was 10 years with 8.5 suspended. When me and my lawyer were ready to get the fighting out in the hallway because he gonna say that I should lay down. He said that the police said I was selling it. I never said I was selling it. Dave, short guy, but my friend right there with me was there with me when I went to see my lawyer. Every time that man laid down on me for 17 grams of marijuana, Dave told him right there in his face. Kelvin never said that. I was there. But I went in court with a lame duck lawyer and wound up doing 16 months, losing my job for 17 grams. So yeah, this was further back, but it's still the same concept. And they did the same thing to my brother Dean for 2.5 ounces of weed while they were legalizing and growing medical marijuana here. How twisted and crooked is this system when they can do that? When I'm locked up with a young guy, the only white person that got time that night, I ain't putting the race card in it, was a young man who had 50 X pills. Everybody else went home.
Right. And it really is that's really outrageous to hear that story. And particularly because right now that the way that Virginia law is proposed, the governor's proposal is that just having weed on you, possession of marijuana, they can presume that you are high. And what that means is they can also get you for driving while under the influence. They can say that you're publicly intoxicated. They can say that, I mean, right now, just that presumption means, number one, who's going to receive that presumption clause is going to be Black folks. Let's be honest. And the way that it's also written right now is that it's almost basically illegal to even have marijuana in your car. They try to write it as if it would be an open container in alcohol, but you all know that some marijuana, even if you've never burned it in your car, you can smell it in your car, right? And Virginia last year just said that the smell of marijuana is not a reason to search or seize you. So that was a new one. But the way this law is written is that would basically erase all of that progress we did, because it says that even if the weed is in your console in your glove compartment, if it is in arm's reach of even your passenger, it is willing to be searched. And then even your passenger is now presumed to be in possession. Everyone's assumed to be high. It's basically illegal. And we know that 85% of convictions of marijuana in Virginia have been from traffic stops. Traffic stops are some of the most deadly experiences and situations for Black folks. And just to continue to tell folks more about what was happening as states were legalizing, Virginia was actually not just doubling, but tripling down on convictions of marijuana through the last 20 years, y'all. And in the last few years, we have actually increased our arrest before we decriminalized to we were arresting up to 20 to 30,000 people a year. And I'll tell you right here in Virginia, the average is 3.9%. You are 3.9% more likely to be convicted if you are Black of any type of marijuana charge. In places like Arlington, you're 14 times more likely. In Hanover, you're 5 times more likely if you're Black. So it really even depends across the Commonwealth how desperate these impacts were of just, an arrestor field, right? That's what we call it, arrestor field. We call Hanover Clanover because it's racist, right? I mean, these situations that we're seeing, and unfortunately what we're looking at right now for the proposal of legalization isn't going to expunge felonies for very much of anything with distribution. And they're going to charge people you have to still pay off your fines and fees to get expunged, which is ridiculous. They're also not totally repealing it. So it's still going to be illegal up until they open the doors, because they said they're going to keep locking us up until they can collect their coin. And, another big part about this is the entire business market that I haven't even touched on, but I'll give you one piece that I'm really trying to get folks in the know about is that they have these things called social equity licenses. And these social equity licenses are supposed to be for folks that were the most impacted, their family members from these particular areas. Well, they have these criteria to where you can qualify for a social equity license. And guess what one of the criteria is? you know, there's criteria of you have to be from this area, you have to have had a charge, your family member had to have been impacted. Well, then they snuck this last one in that said you could also just hire 10 impacted people and also qualify. So this is one of these times where they're allowing folks to grab a piece of generational wealth with one of these licenses and say you get it just by hiring Black folks, not by giving ownership. Let's just hire them. And that is the same type of exploitation that we have seen across this Commonwealth and this United States over the past 402 years. We know that the current day, modern day slavery is the incarceration and mass incarceration that was doubled, tripled, increased 70% because of the drug war in the 80s and 90s. And we know for a fact, just because the drug war increased, prison populations increased by 70% with the drug war. And this has always truly just been a way to criminalize Black folks. And we know that prison labor is cheap, and that's where most of our products are made. We know that our police are actually in charge to protect property, not people. And so it makes sense that, Kelvin, when you bring up Greenleaf, that's actually on my street. I live on Decatur Street in Southside, right here on my street. When you know, it's just really interesting when you brought that up, and Altria and that old building, is that I like to remind people that right here in Richmond, that the very first pension that the Richmond police ever got were from the corporations, were from the business class. So when you think about the way that money is exchanged from corporations to policing to making sure we stay out of the room, it is all very much aligned, and the police stay funded in order to keep us out and to keep the corporations highly funded. And this is why my work is so important in marijuana justice. I don't just believe that we should be involved in the industry, of course, but what I've seen across the country is that legalization has not meant anything for our liberation. In fact, in places like California, advocates are telling us that they wish they had never even legalized it. The legalization and the tax revenues have actually doubled the police departments in some of the rural counties, because the revenues are going to police and not to the people. And that the laws of criminalizing women and their mothers and people in general still in proximity to the plant, particularly Black people and Latinx folks and Indigenous folks, they're saying it's 10 times worse, but now corporations are just making billions. So I really just want to lift y'all's story and say we have to push Virginia big hard right now. Because remember, we are #1 in business, and Virginia is 50th for workers. And that shows up in our economy as well as in our prison system and the way that we treat people.
I wanted to, before we move on to something else, Dave, they had a special. It was not too long ago, maybe a month and a half ago, and it was executive produced by Nas, and it was on the marijuana business. And what he was talking about the incarceration. He was talking about the business part also. Now, the percentage of dispensaries throughout the nation is like 80 to 90% white. And I think it was like 7% Black, I think 3% Latino. But also, with the dispensaries, they are incarcerating some of their owners because it's not legal. It's not legal through the federal government.
Oh,
so
right.
So in these states, they're allowing people to open up these dispensaries, and they are still raiding some of these dispensaries, but they're only raiding the owners that are Black.
Right. And Marijuana and Black People, that documentary that came on BET, executive produced by Nas, also featured Burner, who's the CEO and founders of Cookies, which I'm not sure y'all know Burner. He's also a hip hop artist, but has a big role in marijuana. We were really excited to have him on a panel that we hosted January 14th. If you head to Marijuana Justice and look at our site, you can rewatch that panel. And he actually tells his experience of being raided by SWAT, by the cops, because he was one of the first out in California to have a business. And so, and because again, he's a hip hop artist, and it just, folks know him.
Did he do like 6 years or something like that?
No, this is not, he wasn't the one that got,
okay.
Yeah, he ain't go to jail, but
okay.
yeah, but the fact that his business was targeted a lot, and that is something that still happens even with CBD brands and Black folks, and saying, well, they say that they thought it was marijuana. There was never marijuana, but now they've, lost money, and they've had to close the shop and all these things, and had to hire lawyers. And so it's just a way for us to have to keep spending money to stay in.
So question. So excuse me, I don't mean to stretch a topic along, but so nothing can be done about the disproportionate raise on Black as opposed to everyone else. I mean, just common sense. Me not being the smartest guy in the room, common sense says that if you raid me twice but don't raid my neighbor, then something needs to be done. So we still just sitting back allowing it?
That's a great question, Kelvin. And what we have been proposing and talking to legislators about is to be able to look at a certain who is in ownership, who is keeping their license, and then really look at how these certain folks are being regulated, right? So it's part of the regulatory body that would also be working with police to do these raids. And so what we are saying is that the people that should be on the regulatory board should also look like us, and not just more police on these regulatory boards. And we should also be able to have reports to say who's getting policed, why are they being policed, and what are the disparities that are happening all across this new industry. And if we don't go into this industry knowing that the disparities are going to be there and putting something in place to capture them and then react to them, then we're going to be doing what we do in every other situation, which is acting and pretending that we're surprised when it happens and doing nothing about it, which is what you're seeing and saying that is happening across the country. So there is actually infrastructure that we can put into place that says every 3 to 5 years, you have to have a study that shows me of who owns the dispensaries, who's being policed, who's making all the money, and we can really see how this actual industry is being equitably implemented.
Yeah. I want to follow up on some of that in terms of the licensing and the reinvestment into the communities that you've written about and your colleagues have just described on your website. One of the things that just to back up that I think listeners should know about Dean and Kelvin is that, and if you're listening to them now, you get a sense of this, but if you can see them talking and you can experience any of the other parts of it, is that they're real people. They love being with people. They're natural salespeople. They're entrepreneurs. They're both working on starting their own new businesses now, not related to marijuana. And when I think about them, I don't just think about them liking marijuana or happening to have once sold marijuana. I think of them as people. It's part of their story. It's a part of how they became who they are. They like to sell. And when I think about them now, as people who could benefit from this new wave in the country of legalizing marijuana, I think about all the hurdles that they would face. They've got the felony convictions. They don't have a whole lot of money to afford the licenses. They're discriminated against already because of their color. So Chelsea, could you walk us through what would be the process for guys like them? Well, these guys in particular, but people in Richmond facing a similar situation where you've had some charges, they're mostly drug related. You're coming out now and you happen to have an interest in selling. What could you do?
It's a really good question. And just remembering that we are only looking at proposals of legalization bills. So what I'm describing right now is just the proposal. It is not signed into law. But as the bill is written right now, that with any type of felony, you are not welcomed in the industry.
Wow.
That's the moral turpitude part of that line? What does that mean?
as well as the moral turpitude, right? And what we've been really trying to push to legislators with the moral turpitude, number one, you should just strike that. And number two, if we are looking at people in past records, we should be looking at white collar crimes that have had business crimes, not folks that are highly experienced in the cannabis industry, right? That wouldn't make sense to us. So right now we are saying that felonies, unfortunately, are not included. That is something that we are heavily pushing up against. And but right now, if you have a past record, you are only invited to be involved in this process if you are also eligible for the expungement. Right now, we have two different proposals, so we are unsure exactly what level and threshold they will expunge. I am pretty sure that they will expunge the misdemeanor records, but of course, the misdemeanor ones aren't the charges that are ruining everyone's lives. Right?
Yeah,
it's the felony charges.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we are fighting hard to see what other felony charges they will remove. Right as of right now, I do not see any intent to distribute to be anything that is also eligible for expungement, which is pretty sad. If they do extend it for intention to distribute, I think that they will probably do a petition method. They are saying that misdemeanors will be automatically expunged and that those could possibly be free. But with the felony records, it would still be this petition. They could likely tell you no. You would still have to pay a lawyer. It's these continued barriers. So I haven't even started talking about the process of actually getting there. I'm telling you about all the barriers and the exclusions that are actually there. And so right now, the only impacted people is if you got caught for possession that was a misdemeanor. And then there you could be included, not someone that's actually been cultivating, not someone that's, got the sales skills, not someone that is, got the people skills and even the delivery. And I bring up the delivery very specifically because right now in Massachusetts, there's a mass boycott to the Cannabis Control Authority because they did not give any of the delivery licenses to Black folks. These delivery licenses are some of the smallest, like in the micro licenses that we could have ownership in. And why should we be the deliverers? That's kind of what we were good at, right? So it really is about getting back to the legacy market. And if we had our way, we would say we would write legislation for someone that's selling weed right now would also be able to sell marijuana in the legal market. So anyway, if you are eligible for expungement, then you are coming out, or say your family member was someone that was eligible for expungement and was impacted, then according to this law, you would also be able to apply for a license. Now, as of right now, they're proposing 30% of the tax revenues to go into a reinvestment fund. This reinvestment fund would fund two different ways. It would fund grants to the community, but it also fund loans for people that did not have the capital to start this business. It would not cover everything, but it would be a significant loan. But we do know that these licenses and to be in the marijuana business, the cannabis business, it is quite expensive. And that are requiring now in the legislation 66% state ownership. So what I'm saying is if you're impacted or your family, right, it has to be 60% state ownership. So if you have a out-of-state investor, you have to make sure that 66% of that money is yours. So that's for a regular license. The social equity license, it could be very different. And that brings me to say that the social equity pieces and the licensing pieces, they're not written out to a point where someone like me, I'm not confident that those are going to be distributed equitably. I still have a lot of questions. And so my answer to you, Dave, is right now, not enough people coming home would be eligible. I'm not totally sure about how much money would be available for these social equity loans to be available on day one for the first round of applications. And to be really honest, I'm not sure that our structure is set up in a way right now that would help maintain a social equity business. There's someone on that panel that I mentioned earlier. Someone said, "Yeah, they'll give you a key, but won't give you a car." And so
that's exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm,
that's exactly what it is. They want their hand in the jar. And they want all the cookies. Yep. They just want you to supply the jar.
Yep. Oh, and I haven't said the best part about it. And by best, I mean the worst, is like, just like you said, Dean, they want all of the cookies, and they're going to tell us, well, they're not arresting people. It's no longer criminalized. We've stopped arrest.
Yeah.
Y'all, the way that it's written, they are actually doubling down and increasing penalties on our kids, on our youth. So now that they're easing down the stuff on adults, even though it shows across the country that legalizing marijuana does nothing to increase the use on teen marijuana, they are suspending driver's license automatically. They're putting kids on testing papers. They're adjudicating them. So they're making them automatic juvenile delinquents. And now their life is ruined by being close to marijuana. It would be a felony for a 21-year-old to pass a 19-year-old joint because they're under 21. I mean, the ways our laws are written is that we're attacking specifically 18 to 25-year-olds, and over 80% of our arrests in Virginia for marijuana, guess what their age ranges are?
18 to 25.
18 to 20, yeah.
Not trying to stretch it on too long. These licenses, so is difference between what they're trying to push out now, which is medical, and then the commercial?
Yes. So right now we do have medical cannabis available in oil form.
So,
they don't in the hash.
Well, question, because my not trying to make this into a tutorial, but I've seen where they've already licensed 5 distributors to distribute medical marijuana here. So the next step is, so what we're speaking on would be the commercial, and for people to be included in that. How would that differ? I mean, like, so you're saying that we would be able to grow and sell our product, or well, not we, but someone that's a lot, they could.
Yep. So we have a medical industry right now. And as you said, there are 5 available licenses. There are actually 3 up and standing right now in Virginia. Yeah. And there are also, what we are discussing, what I work on, is an adult use commercial market, which you would not need a cannabis card for. The medical market right now, it only allows for oil and hash. They do not have flower available. But we are talking about the commercial market, which we're looking at around 2024. And we are also helping and working and pushing right now for even that home grow to start earlier than that. But yes, in Virginia, they're proposing up to 4 plants, 2 mature, 2 immature plants per home that you could have with properly labeled. And so, yeah, you could have it on your person, of course, except for those laws that I mentioned. If you're Black, that means we're just illegal walking around, period. Right. But it really is, we're talking about moving forward in this way, but also having still the medical industry as well.
Wow. That is not cool.
Yeah, so that's
so much.
I get enraged listening to you, not because of what you're saying, but because of the truth you're speaking. And it's just because I'm looking at my friends here, and I'm just the question that keeps coming to my mind that I wanted to ask Dean and Kelvin, both of you, as we close out the show, is just to reflect a little bit more about your story. How do you think your life would be different now if you hadn't gone through what you went through with the way our country treats marijuana?
I would let me go first. So I
did. I mean, like, not everything you did was involved with marijuana, but I know a large part of it was. And so that's the part that I'm interested in, not everything else. Just go ahead, Kelvin, you want to start?
Yeah, I want to start just so I can let Dean finish, because Dean has the most current situation, so I want to let him speak. But with me, it was like that was the straw that broke the camel's back with me, Dave. Right, as you know, I never had a marijuana charge, never had a distribution of no kind of drug, only had with intent, like Ms. Wise was saying. And they used that to put this on so they could take a misdemeanor, which they're allowing people to have now, and turn that into a felony. The problem that I have with my last situation with marijuana is that I feel like without that felony, I could have gotten gotten uh gotten and uh, gotten started on the path I'm on now a little bit smoother. But by them using just I don't know how to say it, but by them, I'm trying not to talk long and I'm stretching it out, but what we're going through now has been planned out for so many years, right? And that's what bothers me is like people that I see now are not as smart as, right, I thought have been doing these things for so many years. You got laws in place for to just keep me down, right? And that's my problem because right now, somebody like me should be doing good. But as you know, Dave, right, I'm still struggling.
Yeah.
Nice car, nice apartment, nice everything. That's what you see. But I can't get above that because of simple things like the war on drugs and most recently, some damn marijuana.
Yeah.
You know, but all I ever did was smoke weed, never really been a kingpin of it. I've had plenty of it, but I was never the kingpin of it, but I was known for it. But I don't think that's something like that's never been a problem for me or nobody that smoked it should have gotten me the most time that I've gotten for anything. It gave me 10 years for some marijuana. And whether they took it back or not makes no sense at all.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Dean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's had a devastating impact on my life. You know, smoking it, selling it, doing time behind it. Like I said, it has put a big damper and handcuffed. You know, I could say me to a certain extent where it's hard for me to get out the quicksand. You know, so and I can just imagine other people. You know, I have to support. You know, KB, Dave, my family. Certain guys, certain people. So just imagine the people that don't have the support, the know-how to maneuver through the thick and thin. You know, so it's it's really um unfortunate that people see certain things and they know that it's it's a bad omen, and now they want to capitalize off of it now, you know, and to the point where they don't want you to figure it out. They want you to still be enslaved by their treachery and trickery. You know, so it's just oh man. I could
Can I
probably go.
say something, Dean?
Go
Yeah.
ahead. Go ahead. Then we're gonna get.
Can I say something, Dean?
Of course.
Let me ask Dean a question. Dean, you don't want to go backwards, I know. Neither do I. But right now, how will young Boogie Bugs be able to handle this? We'd be able to flow right through, right?
Yeah.
You know, just the fact that we're older, more mature, trying to do better in life, right? But the younger, knucklehead version of us would really be able to swim in this water, don't you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. And go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that because we're always humbling ourselves. But when I look back on that attack on the Capitol and the things that's going on there, the cop said he didn't want to retaliate because he was scared of what would happen. But we out here getting shot, pulled over with no fear, right, of guys like me and you doing nothing in return. That's why I say it's just horrible how we humble ourselves and then to see the thing that's going on now. I'm not going to turn this into that, but I was just saying, I feel less comfortable now being the guy I am now to doing things right than I did when I was that knucklehead chasing that money.
Yeah, because you know it's unfair. You know what you're struggling with. And that's exactly right. And Dean, I'm glad you broadened it out to think about the people that don't have the support or the maturity or the wisdom that you guys have now. And as we look forward to the conclusion or maybe just the next step of this, I wonder, Chelsea, if you could close us out with what do you think is in the near future for this issue in Richmond? What's going to happen next? And what do you want our listeners to be paying attention to? And how can they support you?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Just to also piggyback off of what they said, particularly about folks that don't have the support, remembering that this tax revenue reinvestment is supposed to actually improve people's lives. So even though folks may not be able to use it for a business loan, there still should be investments into communities that need it. So right now, for all folks, if you want to see quality of life improved across the Commonwealth, you can continue to follow marijuanajustice.org and help us push this message that we need more than 30% of the revenue to communities. We're asking for 70%.
70, yes.
We want 70% of the revenue. And that is a precedent that was set by New Jersey with this type of revenue. If this is a priority to redress the communities that were desperately harmed and biasly enforced, then we really need to push that, because 30% is not going to cover the money and the priorities that we truly need to fund. Continue to follow us on Marijuana Justice social media, THC Justice Now. I mentioned that I live right on the street where Greenleaf is. I don't know if you just heard the ambulance and sirens going by, but that's the dichotomy of the dynamic of my street, right? I hear gunshots all the time. And just blocks away is Greenleaf, y'all. And so the gentrification that's coming here in Richmond, we need to be really on board, because that's gonna increase with the commercial market. And they're saying right now that probably the same number of ABC stores that we have in districts will be the number of dispensaries that we will have. That's just hearsay. But this is how here in this district we can start to get ready to say, who owns it? Where is it? How are we still decriminalizing? How do we make sure that hospitals in our city are not criminalizing Black mothers, Black folks that are in proximity to the plant and just want health care? That's something that's happening across the country, New York and Oregon specifically. And so there are many local ordinances that, as Richmond includes their own city tax for marijuana when we legalize it, that we can really focus on to, number one, not pack the Richmond City quote unquote Justice Center, and to truly make sure that Black folks in Richmond are having licenses opportunities. So continue to follow Marijuana Justice online, marijuanajustice.org, THC Justice Now, and you can even watch the videos of our guest speakers from across the country. That includes entrepreneurs, lawyers, cannabis lawyers, civil rights lawyers, advocates at our YouTube page as well at Marijuana Justice. So we're really looking forward to continuing to bring our community along with us and let folks know that this is going to be a ride for a while, and we're going to continue to fight to make sure we're included the whole way.
Ms. Wise, if you need anything from me for your cause, then let me know. I'm a good foot soldier.
Well, I'm going to not let y'all off without letting you know that you can come and testify anytime, and I'll keep your information and invite you all to come testify. I think
give me a date.
Yeah, let me know too.
And we're going to bring you back on the show for an update. Thank you all for being here. That's our show for today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Dean and Kelvin, for sharing your stories. Thanks to our special guest, Chelsea Higgs Wise. If you want to learn more about the show or hear previous episodes, you can go to writingourwayout.com. You can also listen to the show on our website, or you can go to YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, where I hope you'll subscribe. Please leave us a review and a rating if you go to Apple Podcasts. We would love to hear from you. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Reach out and let us know what you're thinking. The theme music for this show was written and produced by Chris Coogan. You can learn more about him at cooganmusic.com. This show is produced by Rob Crocker, a PhD student in media, art, and text at Virginia Commonwealth University. Join us next time on Writing Our Way Out, the podcast, Season 2, Episode 2, for a very special tribute to Black History Month. Thank you all.